Hey everybody, I'm Jeff Antoniuk. Welcome to Digging Deeper Jazz. Well, I want to talk about sight reading. There's been a lot of questions about reading music and sight reading at jazzwire.net. That's really become sort of a big topic of conversation there, and people are really starting to work on it. And I had to do a lot of work on it over the last couple weeks. The deal was, and now let me tell you this is for all instruments. Today, we're going to be talking about the rhythmic aspect to sight reading. So it doesn't matter what instrument you play, including drums, this is for you. I'm going to talk about some conceptual things that will definitely make your reading better. Now, how this sort of came home to me, I came up playing in big bands and playing shows and doing a lot of sight reading, like in front of hundreds or thousands of people. So that's a skill that I developed, but I haven't really been doing a lot of that for the last 20 years, that sort of work in the music industry. I've been doing more playing and improvising and interpreting music. Well, I got a call to play with a great funk band from the UK, a band called Incognito. And they sent me about 90 pages of music. This is a couple weeks ago. And man, there was some serious stuff in there. And so I had to do a lot of reading, and I really had to interpret some of this stuff and internalize it and get it ready to go. So I'm going to show you some of that music, coming up in just a little bit. But it really got me back to fine-tuning sight reading. Okay, so let's jump into this, and let me give you some really good actionable stuff. And by the way, I wrote up a PDF, as I do for every single one of these Digging Deeper videos. And this is one you'll definitely want to have. They're all free. They're free. Send me an email. I'll send you the PDF. And it lists a couple sort of general points for sight reading and some specific points for sight reading rhythm. And it's all easy enough, but if you don't have it in front of you, if it's not on your stand, if you're not thinking about it in every practice session, it's out the window and there you go. Okay, so yeah, write me and I'm happy to send this to you. So now, most importantly, today we're talking about just rhythm. I'm not going to be talking about pitches or articulations or any of that stuff. Why? Because rhythm is more important than the notes. That is the first lesson you need to understand, is reading is about getting the rhythms first. That's important. I'm going to leave a pause there. I'm going to say it again and leave a pause to be dramatic. Sight reading is about rhythm. Okay, you got it. So yes, that is the first thing to prioritize. I'm going to do another video down the road on how to sight read the actual melodic part, the note values and everything else. But in the hierarchy of things, get the rhythm first. Why? Okay, when I was playing with Incognito, I played some wrong notes, but no one would ever know if I got the rhythm correct. If I nailed that rhythm, the fact that I was a third away or a second away or whatever, not the end of the world, and I bet nobody noticed. Now, if I played the correct note in the wrong spot and 13 people went bang, and I went boop, oops, that is what you call a mistake that every one of those 2,000 people in the theater heard. Okay, it's about rhythm. So that is the first thing. The next thing is there's not an infinite number of rhythms. It's a small number. I haven't counted it up, but I tell you what, if you start, it's pattern recognition. So if you start memorizing little rhythmic shapes and play them over hundreds, thousands of times. And at some point when you see that thing, you'll hear that thing. So this is all about pattern recognition. The last thing I'll say is the biggest thing, one of the most important things, is to look ahead. When you're driving your car, are you looking right at the edge of the hood, that bit of pavement right at the edge of your hood? No, that is how to drive right into a building or off a cliff. When you're walking down the street, are you looking at the tips of your toes? Of course not. Your gaze is 10 feet or 50 feet ahead of you. So when you're sight reading, the measure you're playing, you're already looking a measure or two ahead. The great sight readers might be looking 3 or 4 measures ahead. It sounds impossible, but you're playing a measure, but you've already memorized the next measure and the next measure, and you're looking at the 4th measure as you're playing this measure. That sounds insane, except for that's how you read, except for that's how you walk. except for that's how you drive your car or your bike. You're not thinking about the piece of pavement you're on. You looked at that 10 seconds ago, right? Isn't it incredible? So all the skills you use in everyday life are what we use here in music. So that's why I'm so convinced that the adult amateurs out there can get so much better than you imagine, because all these musical skills have a parallel in sort of everyday life away from our instruments. Okay, very good. So let's look at a couple of the sort of specific examples and then get into some rhythmic things to really start testing ourselves. One of the biggest things I can suggest is seeing if you can decide what the rhythmic framework of the song is. So that's sort of my own language, but I think it makes plenty of sense. I've heard other people refer to it. So now if we're thinking about a bebop song, now the bass and the drums are playing quarter notes. Ding, 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 ding. So they're playing along like that. But the motion of the song is sort of double that. It's eighth notes. Jazz is about eighth notes. Ba ba do ba do ba do ba da 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 do da da, right? So I might be tapping my foot in quarter notes, but I'm subdividing eighth notes. So for much music that we listen to, a bossa nova, jazz, a rock tune, a country tune, a lot of classical music, the matrix, the framework of what's going on is going to be eighth notes. So you feel the quarter note pulse in 4/4, let's say, but then you're thinking eighth notes. Now, traditionally, we would subdivide. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 is sort of what's going on in my head. And I'm singing swing right now. Those were swing eighth notes. So now I was just watching a video with Dizzy Gillespie on YouTube the other day. And it was interesting. This was back in the late 60s, early 70s, I think. Dizzy Gillespie working with a European big band. The interesting thing is what Dizzy was telling them, he told me personally in 1984 when I got to work with him for a week in Canada, working with a big band I was playing with. And he was talking about this idea of having that subdivision in your body, but he wasn't talking about sort of the classical way of thinking 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. He just kind of had in his mind, he just kind of had these syllables and that feel and that groove. He had that going on in his body. But the point is, he had those eighth notes. He was feeling them. He was singing them. He was moving to them. And he was also patting his foot. And he was very specific about how he liked to do that. So that idea of what's the subdivision. Now, when I was playing with Incognito, most of the music was subdivided 16th notes. So the tempos may have been a little slower. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a so I had to know subdividing 16th notes or 8th notes. So that's a really, really big one. So numbers 4 and 5 on the sheet are really, really important. We're sort of going to get into that. So one of the things to do is, can you subdivide the measure? Do you remember, like, if you're 1,000,000 years old, like me, or 2,000,000 years old, following the bouncing ball, there used to be TV ads or sing-alongs where there'd be words and the ball would sort of bounce along on top and let you know where we were in the sing-along, something silly like that. That's what your eye needs to do with with beats 1 and 3. So here's what I want you to do. Open a book, any book of any music, and count it off. This does not include your instrument. Your instrument is sitting in its case in the other room. Count it off, and I want you to be able to go through and can you identify beats 1 and 3 on beat 1 and 3. So 1, 2, 3, 4, it's here. Now it's here. Now it's here and here. Here's beat 1, here's beat 3. Here's beat 1, here's beat 3. So you're forcing yourself to ignore a lot of information and just see what's important. Can you bisect the measure? Can you find beat 1? I'll give you a hint. It's the first thing after the measure line, right? Whatever the first thing is, whether it's a rest or a note, first thing in the measure is beat 1. Just getting that is so important. And I see in Jazzwire, people get kind of balled up and there's a rest on beat 1 and they play something. Well, so clearly they're not quite sure where beat one was. They're holding over from the previous measure or playing early. They're not clear on where beat one was. So having that pulse together, right? So that idea of going through and can you find beat one? That's the easy one. Now, can you find beat three? Beat three should be somewhat simple to find through the measure. And we don't have to go into the rules of music copying, but one of the rules of music copying is beat three has to always be on its own. There shouldn't be a note that's in the middle of the measure. We should be able to draw an invisible line between beat 2 and 3. No matter how complicated the 16th notes or 32nd notes or triplets are, we should be able to easily find beat 3. So that would be a fantastic thing to get from this video, is to every day spend 4 minutes doing that. Beat 1, beat 3. Beat 1 at any tempo. And can you just move your eye from 1 to 3, identifying especially where beat 3 is. Okay, so let's look at some of the examples here. Item number 1 is something that I would call quarter note based reading. So when I look, I don't know what those rhythms are yet. I haven't looked, but my eye goes across the whole line very quickly. Like I look up, I'm driving on the highway, I look up and I see no cars in front of me. Got it. Okay, that's good. Or I look up and see, wow, a lot of traffic coming. Good. Like I have a sense of what's coming up. So I look here and I see, wow, mostly half notes and quarter notes. Okay, so I know that the underlying pulse is sort of quarter notes. So can I be counting to myself? 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. Can I have that pulse inside my body? I don't have to worry about 16th notes. I actually don't have to worry about 8th notes either, right? It's just quarter notes. So can we tap this out? Can we sing it? Can we play it with a note on our instrument? I've written it as a B. It doesn't have to be a B because we're not talking about notes. We're just talking about rhythms. So can we do that? Can we sing it together? Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Dot, 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 dot. Okay, now do it again. Rewind the video, whatever you want to do. Do it again and make your eye move from beat 1 to beat 3. So in the first measure, your eye lands on that half note. Now where is beat 3? You could count forward and go, and you could do the calculations. Oh, a half note is 2 beats. So I guess anything that follows a half note has to be beat 3. If the half note's on beat 1, whether it was a 30-second note or the craziest rhythm on earth, doesn't matter. It has to start on beat 3 because a half note preceded it. So that's very interesting. So you don't have to freak out about where that scary looking rhythm begins. It's on beat 3. Let's move on to the next item. Item number 2, you look ahead. You're not even looking at the specific rhythms, but you're looking ahead to what's going on here. 8th notes. Now, the first thing I may do is look through and try to find beat 1 and beat 3 in each measure. And even if I screw up beat 2, I know what's going on with beat 3. I can jump there. My eye is moving from beat 1 to beat 3. Let's give it a try. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Da 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 da. Okay. Not award-winning singing. I know that, but I think I got the rhythms right. And now I was doing that with straight 8th notes. You may have noticed that I wasn't doing that as if it were swing, but we could do it with swing as well. Now, I'm going to put up on the screen a little bit of the music that I played with Incognito. And here's one of the best tips I got at North Texas. I don't know how many tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars I paid for tuition at North Texas for 6 years, but it all gets down to this one thing. So I'm going to save you about $150,000 right now. Here we go. Sight reading. When there's a really scary, tricky rhythm, what I do is get out a pencil and put a vertical line through each of the 4 beats, especially when it's 16th notes, through each of the 4 beats in a measure of 4/4. So you can see on the screen this measure that, was a little creepy looking to me. And now I figured it out quickly and was able to play it. But here's the thing. That was one measure out of 85 or 90 pages. Oh, by the way, you're on stage. It's dark half the time. The lights are flashing and everything else. So I wanted to make sure I didn't screw that up when that rhythm came up in the middle of nowhere. So you can see those faint lines. And that let me know where is beat 3? Am I playing on beat 3 or is it a rest on beat 3? Where is beat 4? Because with those complicated 16th note rhythms, it gets trickier and trickier. But again, it's just pattern recognition. I know those patterns there. Like I've seen a lot of those 16th note patterns. So, for some of us it looks scary. For some of us it's like not that big a deal. But where that measure fell and everything that came before it, I may have been a little bit sort of on my heels. So I wanted to make sure I wasn't, sort of playing catch up and then I got to that measure and now I screw it up. Those little lines help me know where things are. That may be the biggest tip on the video. So this is the kind of stuff to be thinking about. So there were some general ideas about sight reading, and the biggest general one is rhythm first. I could have written this with scales or, I could have made it more interesting melodically. No, don't do that. Rhythm first. You're only looking at the rhythms to begin with. And in an upcoming video, we're going to talk about what to do melodically and some tricks to get through. So of these 8 or 10 ideas that I gave you for how to get through this sight reading stuff, pick 1 or 2, maybe 3 of them and start working on it. And here's the thing, I guarantee if you do this 2 or 3 minutes a day, that's 2 or 3 minutes more than perhaps you've ever done in your life. And it's actually amazing what doing 10 push-ups or 10 sit-ups a day becomes. And after a while, instead of 2 minutes, you do it for 4 minutes. And after a while, you are kind of getting somewhere with this stuff. And with these little tricks, you're not going to spin your wheels and make the same mistakes over and over and over again. And of course, the biggest thing I can say is getting help with this stuff, right? Getting feedback. So that's what we do all day long at jazzwire.net. I know you hear me talk about Jazzwire. So that is the place where we can work on this daily, where you can get feedback daily. If you're not sure, God, those 16ths are so hard, I don't know if I got it right. Well, the people at Jazzwire have the luxury of checking in hourly, let alone daily. So that's a big possibility. And last thing I want to say is I have some in-person workshops coming up. If you go to jazzwire.net/events, you can sign up for one of these 4 events. In December, I'm going to be in Toronto and Waterloo, both in Ontario, Canada. And in January of 2020, I'm going to be in San Diego and then Pomona, which is near Los Angeles, in January. And there's only 15 or 20 spots. I think it's a max of 20 spots for each workshop. So they're going to get sold out. So definitely, if you're in that area, I would love to work with you in person and go over some of this material with you, together. That would be fantastic stuff. Also, in August of 2020, I'm going to be coming to Germany, starting to put together a tour. It's looking like the UK, Germany, Belgium, the Netherlands are all places we're looking at. So I would love to come and work with you. So be in touch, send us an email, and register, save your spot for those 4 events coming up. Thank you so much. Let's get this sight reading together, get your reading together, and music is so much more fun when you are comfortable with this stuff. Give it a try. Let me know how it goes for you.